Welcome back to Love This For Us.
Hello.
How's everybody doing? How you doing?
I'm doing okay.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah, had better days.
Same. So, I posted a video a couple days ago showing my legs, the unedited version. And obviously that was embarrassing or whatever, but I realized I had never shared my story. We've never even talked about it, which is weird. Why have we never talked about this? I feel like I asked that a lot.
You didn't ask. I mean, life moved on, and
yeah,
you know what I'm saying? I
just was like, it was what it was.
Yeah.
But if you don't know what I'm referring to, a few days ago I posted a video about showing my legs and how I was self-conscious and I had a scar, and I actually had an a childhood cancer scare when I was 13?
7th grade.
7th grade, whatever age that was.
12, 13, something like that.
And we never have talked about it. And it was like a year of my life, probably 7th to 8th grade.
Yeah, probably.
Testing and surgery and recovery and everything.
Yeah, it's hard. It feels like it was a piece in time, but it's hard to remember how long exactly.
But I wanted to talk about it with you because I now, as a parent, realized probably was super scary and traumatizing, because I didn't realize that was I didn't know that I was having a cancer scare.
Well, you shouldn't have.
Well, I just knew I had a tumor and no big deal. It grew, but hey, we're gonna like cut it out and, you know, go from there. And then the other day we were talking about, I remember when I was going under, I heard amputation.
Yeah,
and I was like,
that upset me because I didn't know.
I'm sorry.
You know, I didn't know when you, well, we should probably start from the beginning.
You should start from the beginning and tell me the story, because I don't, obviously, as a kid.
Do you remember how the house looked when we moved in? Like it still needed some work when Pop had bought the house. I mean, like anything, you know, it needed some work. So at the foot of the stairs was tile. You remember that? Yeah. And conversely, the dormer window above the foyer leaked if we had heavy rain. So you came running down the steps or the stairway, and it was wet, probably from that little bit of a water leak. So she went sliding across the foyer and into something, you know, and because I think I was out here or something, and then like a thump and a scream and my knee. So we went to the hospital for an x-ray, and they were like, oh, well, there's nothing really wrong with her knee. It's fine, strained, sprained, whatever. But at the top, they only x-rayed your knee, but at the top of her femur, we see a little shadow. There's like something there that, you know, you need to see a doctor about. And then I'm thinking we must have had to see your pediatrician, I'm guessing, and then got referred to an orthopedic doctor in Daytona. And I think it was like a big orthopedic office, so I think they did the whole x-ray there. I just remember it was you and I. Pop was on the road somewhere. Pop traveled a lot, you know, until just like 4 or 5 years ago. Right. So he was somewhere. And I remember thinking, it was a big office, and we were in a waiting room, or a patient room, whatever, way in the back. And I remember thinking, gosh, have they forgotten about us? You know, where you start to, you cough, you know, it's like, we're still back here, crack the door open. I think what ended up happening is they had done your x-ray. Those kind of offices a lot of times will do your x-ray like when you first come in, and then, you know, then they come in and go over the x-ray. In retrospect, probably the guy was like, oh, heck, you know, this is a kid, what, nah. Yeah. And so he came back, the doctor finally came in. I mean, it was late, it was like 6 o'clock or something, so you're hungry. I don't remember anything. Oh, you don't remember any of that? And so he said, well, you know, and he didn't say it like this, but this is my memory of it. It's like, well, that shadow is actually a bone tumor. I'm like, huh, you know, the size of a roll of quarters. And so you were 12-ish, you know, so a roll of quarters embedded in your femur was 3/4 of your femur was a tumor. And so I just remember thinking, what? And he said, this is way over my head. You know, she's a child. I know. You know, that's not ever encouraging. You know, like, this is way more than I can handle. But I know a guy, and we've got this great guy, and he's in Jacksonville that handles pediatrics and pediatric orthopedist, I guess. So here, oh, okay.
Do you need to take a drink?
Yeah. Well, I haven't thought about it sequentially in a long time.
I'm sorry.
So I think what happened, because we are 2 hours from Jacksonville, depending on where, and where the doctor was in Jacksonville was on the other side.
Yeah.
Way past where you guys lived. So they were very nice and just worked with her pediatrician to say, well, before she comes up to see Dr. Barry, we'll talk about him in a minute, get all these tests done.
Yeah.
You know, to make, rather than, because I would say, like, they were like, you need this, you know. Okay.
I remember that.
You know, but it's like, we're far from home. I mean, that's, you know, difficult. So we got all the tests here, which you had a CAT scan, CAT scan, MRI, one or the other. I remember Papa was with us. Again, Papa was gone. Papa, my father, Lauren's grandfather, was the king of everything. And so he was with us at Halifax. I think in the very same day, you had to have the CAT scan or the MRI, somebody will know better, that you had to drink the stuff. And so you're crying, Papa's trying to make you laugh, trying to get you to drink the stuff. I'm like frustrated, like, please drink the stuff, because if you don't, then we have to come back. You know what I mean? I just was like, let's get all this unpleasant done at the same time. I think they had to start a little IV on you, you know, took you into the, you know, and I remember thinking, you know, heaven forbid this is awful. I should be prepared for going to these kind of, I don't know, your mind spins. So it was like 2 sides of the hallway, the CAT scan on one side, and that didn't agree with you, because like when they give you the shot of the dye, it makes you feel all hot, and you're a child and you're scared, and it was awful. And then you had to go across the hall for the bone scan.
That was terrible. I remember that.
The bone scan, you're laying on like an x-ray table, and what seems to be this gigantic slab of an x-ray machine has to go from your head to your toes.
It was your toes to your head.
But it's like this. I mean, it
awful.
Barely is touching you.
It's awful.
And so that was tough.
That was
you know,
awful.
and you couldn't move, and you know, Papa and I are trying to talk to you, and you know.
That's fine. Sorry, do you sure you want to No. I've never, like, I know obviously bits and pieces.
So that went on for a while, getting tests and all that kind of stuff. So that was, you know, very stressful, waiting for the tests. I did learn, this was kind of, the internet existed, but not at all like we have now. And I did learn the way to figure out, you know, because nobody's going to give you any results. Right. When they're doing the procedure or anything like that. But it's your medical record, and you are entitled to, like, you're entitled to it all, because it's about you. But I would get the diagnostic report, like where the radiologist would say, on this date we did this and this, and here's what I think. And then I'd look up all the words that I didn't know, which I had a pretty good sense of medical terminology. But, and on those things, they have a tendency to say, you know, consistent with or inconsistent with. And so that's where we first learned the word non-ossifying fibroma. But it also, as everybody was saying, well, you know, we won't know till we get in there. It could be a bone cancer. Okay. So we go to Dr. Barry in Jacksonville, Dr. Hudson Barry.
He was amazing.
We looked him up this morning.
He's old now.
He's not old now. He just has...
Well, he was like, I just remember him being this giant, handsome man. And now he's like older.
Well, he was probably in his 50s then, and he's probably in his 60s
I know, it's
now.
weird to see him like that.
Big, gigantic hands. Pop called them toilet seat hands. He was a big, big man.
Pediatric surgeon with giant hands.
Yeah, retired Army colonel. When I Googled him again this morning, he was the head of all orthopedics at Walter Reed.
Oh, wow.
Like, so he was a big deal.
Oh, good. Thank goodness.
So we go to him, and again, you know, do you remember him?
I remember
wonderful.
Him.
I remember the first office visit. I think he was in a different office, just being a nervous wreck and, you know, that kind of stuff. And he talked right to you.
He always talked to me. He was the only one.
We were all in the room together, and he talked to you. And even he said, well, I don't think so. You know, I don't think it's, you know, he explained, you know, blah, blah. I don't think it is, but, you know, these things we never know, blah, blah. So I think very quickly it was decided, you know, obviously you needed to have surgery, because the other thing is, if you had not have fallen and we would have found it, you'd have just been walking or running or playing one day and your leg would have snapped in half.
Yeah, that's fun.
That would have been a much more difficult thing to recover from, as opposed to having it removed. So I think we maybe had to wait.
It wasn't long, I feel
like. A
week
or two for surgery or something like that.
It all happened so fast.
I think because there was the possibility it was cancer and you were a child, they weren't, you know, dilly-dallying around. I think from the time we saw the doctor in Daytona, it took us like a couple of weeks to get the tests, and then we saw Dr.
I remember
Barry.
we got an x-ray and they wanted to watch it and see if it grew. or something. And then we went back and it grew. But in my recollection, it was like a couple months, but it must not have been. It must have been like a week or two and it grew. I don't remember.
I don't have a memory of that.
Okay.
That sounds a little familiar, but I don't specifically have that memory. But we felt very confident with, you know, Dr. Barry's decision, and so off we went to Jacksonville, Wolfson Children's Hospital.
It's a great hospital.
And, you know, it was a great hospital. And they said, like, we won't know for sure, but as soon as he gets in, he'll take a biopsy, send it to the lab, and, you know, if it's not cancer, which he, you know, he couldn't say 100% it wasn't, but he was hopeful it wasn't, then we'll just proceed with removing the tumor. And we kind of talked about if it was a bone tumor, where it was and how much it was in your leg, then, you know, what were the options going to be?
They were going to...
Well, they would have to maybe amputate your leg, but, you know, I didn't even think about that a whole lot. I couldn't.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's just like, okay.
But my memory of going under is I heard amputation and I was like, what?
Well, so when they took her back, it was just her biological father and I, you know, as her parents, and they started the IV in the children's hospital, so everything was painless. You know, they put the topical lidocaine on your hand, got your IV started to chew on her fuzzy slippers.
Yeah, that's good stuff.
You know, and we stayed with her until, you know, they wheeled you into the room. But now with Aunt Kath working at the hospital, I think what you ended up hearing, which I don't know why you weren't already asleep, and you must have been asleep. But I, you know, my understanding is, and somebody else can comment on this too, is like before they start a surgery, they go through your name and your date of birth, and we're operating on the right leg, and it's, you know, I think they almost have to say, like, you know, all the technical terms, we're going to cut her leg open, we're going to go in and remove the tumor, we're going to take a biopsy. If the tumor is cancer, we're going to amputate the leg. I think you must have heard that, which that breaks my heart that you heard that.
Well,
and that you remember it. You know, so we were waiting in the waiting room, all of us. The other side of your family from back then, your aunt had come down.
That's what I thought was weird. I was like, why was Aunt Janet here?
You know, Papa was there, Pop and I were there, and well, Aunt Janet was like, I'm a nurse, you know.
Yeah,
so
she wanted to come. I get why she's there now, but back then I didn't know.
You know, so they kind of gave us a deadline, like, you know, we anticipate we'll be out in an hour to give you the biopsy, because we'll tell you either way, you know. And of course, you know, I guess they didn't start on time. It was like an hour and a half or 2 hours, which had nothing to do with you. It had to do with like the kid that was in surgery before you or something like that. And so they came out, a nurse came out in scrubs and said, nope, it's not cancer, but the tumor is bigger than we expected. So we're gonna, you know, it's gonna take a little time to remove the tumor. So really at that point it was just like, okay.
Yeah. It's like, if it's not
cancer, we're good.
Yeah.
So when you got back to your room, you were throwing up violently, as you do from anesthesia, so that was fun.
Yeah.
Sorry. And then when that settled down, when they got enough Zofran or Phenergan in you, kind of like stripped you down, kind of, and looked at you over head to toe, wanted to see your incision, which I couldn't. It was wrapped up, which it was a long incision. At the time, it was half your leg.
Yeah.
The incision. And then we found the incision on your hip, with a couple stitches, and we're like, what the heck?
And that hurt.
Well, because the tumor had eaten up, that's what took so long, I think, because the tumor had eaten up so much of the bone. I don't know, I can't remember what his original plan was, like remove it, maybe the bone would grow back, I don't remember. But there was so little of your regular bone left that they got cadaver bone, ground it up into a paste with your own bone marrow. And so that's what we saw on your hip.
Yeah.
Was that. And so they packed it full of that. And, you know, that night was that night. I mean, I remember a little therapy dog that came around, and they had like pink ladies that brought around like...
I was on the floor with all sick kids, like cancer kids. Like my area, because it was a children's hospital, it was like a, I don't know, like an oval, like all of our rooms.
It was probably like the post-surgical floor.
Yeah, it's like you're facing the nurse's station, like you have glass like windows, it's not, and there was a kid next to me, I think that did not do well. Like it was bad all night, and it was just, it was traumatic, but I wasn't in the hospital that long.
You were only in the hospital one night because the next morning we came back and you had to go to physical therapy. They had to, because we had steps to get into our house, they had to see you go up and down a step with crutches. So we did that, and then we were able to bring you home. And we had a van at the time, a minivan, everybody did. And you sat in the back seat, you know, with your leg up, and you kind of cried and whimpered all the way home because you had the knee, what is it called? The knee immobilizer, like those things you see that wrap your whole leg to keep it straight. And so you cried and whimpered all the way home. You were in pain. You did all right when we were at the hospital because they kept you juiced up, you know, to do the...
I remember putting my leg down from having it up on that long of a drive was the painful part.
And it took a long time home because Pop was driving slow, you know, to not hit any
Is this
bumps.
traumatic?
No, I just haven't talked about it. And,
I'm sorry.
So then he and Papa had to carry you up the steps into the house because when we got you out of the thing, all the blood kind of rushed to it and you were in terrible pain, which before the sun even came up the next morning, Papa and Pop were building a ramp. So you would never again have to go up a step. I mean, it's gone. I mean, that was a big deal when we were able to tear it down, but bless their hearts, the slope it went halfway into the garage, so you didn't have any slope. But we had a bedside commode, and I remember whatever chair we had at the time, you sat like where I sit, and just...
I remember, you know, I didn't go back to school for a long time after because I had to heal.
You were home for a solid 2 weeks. I remember I took a solid 2 weeks off, and it was rough. You know, you couldn't go to the bathroom alone. You couldn't bathe. I'm thinking we just did a bed bath for you in the chair.
Isn't it funny how...
You couldn't sleep in your room upstairs. So at the time, Pop's office was where my office is, and that was a guest room. So we moved you into the guest room, you and your porta potty, and
I healed fine.
You healed fine.
I went back to school. Everybody made such a big deal.
Remember, there was like a stitch. There was internal stitches and external stitches with a lot of stitches. And there was one that was like hanging out of the skin, and she'd pull on it and it would tweak.
It was like invisible, like fishing line in my leg.
And it would make her scar like move.
Moral of the story is I am fine, and I was fine.
And when you went back to school, you were still on crutches.
And I remember you
had to have a helper. You got out of class a couple minutes early, and they carried your
But what I'm saying is, what I remember is when I went back, everyone made a big deal about it. Like they were writing on the, like, I don't know if it circulated that Lauren might have cancer. She's getting
probably
surgery.
All it takes is one little thing, and that was pre-internet. I think MySpace existed, so who knows, you know.
It's just
kids,
weird.
That kind of stuff kids latch on to because they're also thinking, if that can happen, you know, at that age, if that can happen to you, it can happen to me.
It's weird to think that
we went back a couple of times for follow-ups and everything, and Papa always went. Pop was on the road. Remember, we would always stop at Ruby Tuesdays or somewhere to eat on the way home. He was so good about, you're not driving.
Yeah.
Okay. And you had a scare with that leg. Remember when you were in high school? Or you were in high school, and the area had started to ache again. And we went back to see Dr. Barry, and it was wonderful to see him, like, what, 3 or 4 years? Whatever, how many more years later. And it was just kind of like growing pains. And when he took the x-ray there in the office, what had happened, and it's not a bad thing, is as your own bone regrew, like that plug what was dissipating and going out into your leg.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Like,
I don't remember that. Oh my gosh, it's so funny how much trauma one person can just push down. Seriously.
Yeah.
Like I
remember his whole joke was your feet were cold, and
I wore toe socks.
That's where the toe socks. And I think when we went back to see him, you found an old pair of toe socks, and it was the joke because...
Why don't I remember all of this? It's so weird.
You remember going back when you were having problems?
No, I don't. Like, I don't.
Oh.
That's what I'm saying, like...
That was scary because you're like...
Do I have early onset something? Like, or is it trauma? I feel like that's a trauma response, like to push things down.
And it was a non-ossifying fibroma. And it's not something that like, I can't remember now, I'd have to Google it, but I think it just... one of those things that happens. You're not any more likely to have another one any more than anybody would be likely to have. I'm almost 30
years old, and this leg, I swear I always say it's like they put like some superstar bone in my leg, but it's never given me an issue. I've never, like, since whatever, that high school time, I don't remember that. I really don't.
You were very active in CUDA care or something, and I don't know, I think it was, there's a little fly in here, I think it was actually a little bit more muscular, but we weren't going to take, you know, what do I want to say? Were regularly complaining of pain in that leg.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, okay, we're not going to take any chances on that. And that was the last time we've seen Dr. Barry.
Yep. It's crazy that you can experience something like that, and that there's people who experience similar things, or like actual cancer. It's like, and as a parent, like we were talking to John about it last night, because I can't imagine what you went through as a parent to like think your almost young adult teenager is gonna like have cancer. It's bone cancer. It runs in my biological father's side of the family. That's what his father died from. It's just, cancer is scary, and that's
right.
I
don't think, and I normally am the end of the road person, like, you know, that because of what I did for a living, if somebody has chest pain, they're gonna have a heart attack right then and there and die, like, you know what I mean? Catastrophic thinking. I didn't do that with you. Like, my brain wasn't gonna even go.
I'm glad you didn't. And
well, obviously I wasn't gonna share any of it with you, but
if Dr. Barry told me it could be, like, I think something happened where I heard the C word, cancer, and like must have shut down or something, because I have no memories of like a lot.
That's good. Well, you were a kid.
Yeah.
You know. And you were probably worried about things that were not relevant at all.
That's what I'm saying.
You know, like
my butt, my leg looking like a butt cheek.
Yeah, which I never knew that story.
Well, it's because it's one of those fun things that you don't tell your mom. Hey, mommy. Blah, blah, blah.
But I think at the time you were probably more worried, like, whatever group of friends you had, are they still going to be my friends when I go back in 2 weeks? I'm sure you had your own worries, but it wasn't about that. Because kids also have a tendency to think,
I'm not going to die. Yeah, I think that's really what it was. It was like, oh, well, I'm fine. Like, why would I be sick? I'm not going to be sick. I'm fine.
And we didn't have the internet like that. You know, so it wouldn't even have occurred to you to be looking things up. I don't even know.
I wonder if that if that kind of floats into my being scared to die, hypochondriac thing. I feel like I kind of dodged a big one with that. So I'm like constantly waiting for like something.
I think you just got old enough to be aware.
Old enough to get anxiety.
Yeah.
Good.
I love enough to get anxious.
But I've never shared this story, and we've never talked about it ever, which is so weird. Like you said, it's a time in our life where you just move on and that's it.
You know, and life moved right on as far as you were fine. You went back to school, and, you know, life just picked up. It didn't hold you back. I mean, I think you still went to gym class for whatever you were willing to go to any class. You probably used it to your advantage to get out of gym class. You know. Yeah. Look at because the scar was impressive in those.
It was a big
scar. So all you'd have to say to the gym teacher is, well, you know, I had this. They thought it was. I know you. They thought it might have been. I got this scar. I really can't. I can't.
It hurts.
But I can't.
It hurts.
And oh, honey, since going corporate.
Thanks for talking about it with me. I'm sorry. I have very little recollection of that, and I don't ever want it to, like, I don't know. It's just weird. Like, there's so many things that have happened in my life, and it's weird to think that that's one of the things that has happened in my life. You know what I mean? I'm like, oh, wow, crap.
We don't dwell on it. I mean, I don't look at your scar at all. I mean, other than to say, gosh,
my
it's
knee
almost
is still
gone,
numb.
you know?
My knee is still numb.
Yeah, which we knew that those
it's
kind of
always
things, there's a nerve that he knew.
It doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah.
But other than that.
You had a lot of pain, though, in the first week.
Very painful.
In the first week or two, you had a lot of pain.
So.
Which I didn't think bones were supposed to be painful, but, you know, there was a lot of tissue to cut through, muscles and nerves and everything, so. But the hospital was great. The doctor was fantastic.
It was some wonderful, as wonderful as it can get experience.
I'm trying to conjure up memories of what we did during those 2 weeks. It felt very heavy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, almost like having a baby again, where you're like, did I have a shower yet today?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's my memory of it, is kind of the similar feeling, but different, because it's totally different, of the first weeks of motherhood, where you're just exhausted.
Because I'm waking up at night in pain.
Yeah. So
pain is and when your kid's in pain, it's even worse. Sorry about that.
Did you have to have physical therapy? I don't think you did.
Remember.
I don't think you did. You've had physical therapy for other things, but I don't think you had to have physical therapy for that.
Well, that's the story of
Dr. Hudson
Barry.
Berrey. Berrey.
And he's with
the Baptist group in Jacksonville, you know. And a really nice bio. It was nice to see that he's still practicing.
I'm glad he's still doing it, because he's wonderful.
He's like world renowned with tumors and stuff like that, so yeah.
I can't believe it.
Yeah. Good times.
Good times. I was reading what I was going to say as I saw a comment. There was a girl in my comment section who had multiple non-ossifying fibromas, like throughout her life. Yeah.
Really?
And had to have multiple surgeries to like do stuff to them. So it's not.
Where were hers?
I don't know. I'm gonna have to like scan the comments. So many comments came through on that video, which I was shocked about.
And I'm terrible.
And I had so many people were like, you had a childhood cancer scare? Like what, WTF? Like what? And I'm like, oh yeah, I never mentioned that. Like, I don't know.
But it wasn't a childhood cancer scare to you at the time because you didn't understand that.
It was to you, which is almost worse because you're a parent.
Well, but it wasn't I mean, we share everything now, but I mean, it wasn't appropriate to share then.
Yeah.
You know, some burdens you carry as a parent.
Thanks for carrying that.
Well, it's okay.
It was rough.
It's weird to think of. I mean, we haven't talked.
I know. That's what I'm saying. We never. It happened, and then we moved on. It happened, and then we were like,
all right, peace
adios.
out. We're good. We're on to the next thing.
Yeah, we really did.
And before you know, in 8th grade was a rough year, and I wonder. You know, because remember when we had talked on the last video that, 6th grade, the first semester, you were all,
I was doing fine in 7th grade too.
You were doing okay. I think you never recovered from that.
Probably did something weird. Yeah, let's blame that on my bad grades.
No, but I mean, you missed, it happened in elementary school.
Strep throat.
Strep throat. You missed a lot of school in the early years until they agreed to take your tonsils out. And I feel like that affected your educational process. And then this, you know, I think.
Maybe.
I almost think that it didn't dawn on you till after, you know, the whole, like probably when you went back to school and everybody's like, oh, we heard you had cancer.
Yeah.
I think you might have adopted then, I'm live and let live. It could have been, you know what I mean?
Maybe.
I think you were like,
probably.
Peace out.
I YOLO'd all through my life.
You YOLO'd hard. So.
I YOLO'd from 7th grade to 21.
And I think that might have had something to do with it.
It might have internally. It's good, deep stuff.
Yeah.
I'm glad I'm okay. And I'm glad that you're okay because that's super traumatic and handled it like a champ.
We are shaped by our...
So that is the story, folks.
Yep, that is the story.
Was it interesting? I don't know. Was it worth sharing? I think so. I think it could help someone. You
Sure. Whatever
never
you're
know.
going through.
Yeah.
An autism diagnosis, medical, some kind of
could
medical,
always...
you know, it's always, well, just like you said, even at that young age, you knew there were kids that were in way worse shape.
Yeah.
You know, and that's upsetting to see.
It is, and
know?
it's like, oh gosh, could that be me? But at the same time, like, I'm so thankful I was okay.
Let's end on a high note.
On a high note, I was okay, and we're always thinking of people
we
who
used
aren't.
to say, get the tattoo on the scar. But then
The
that
zipper.
but then not a zipper, but like a pretty flower.
I don't know. It's very
It's too far
self-conscious.
gone now. It would draw attention to it.
Yeah, because it's like, it's faded and it's rough looking. I don't know. It's just different.
Well, I think Janet was the one that gave you something to put on it, like Mederma or something, and you did pretty, considering.
Because I got made fun of about it. Of course I did.
Yeah, I can't remember that kid's name, but you know, which I didn't know about, but. But the scar did heal for considering how invasive the surgery was. I mean, you did all right on the scar.
You did great. Yeah.
You know.
All right. Good notes. I'll have fun editing this because it's weird. It's just like such a weird thing to talk about. Sometimes.
Oh, okay.
Just I heard shorter. It's pretty long.
I heard you stopped editing.
Aha. We'll see you guys in the next one.
Bye.
If you have any questions, leave them down below.
Sure. We'll answer. And I see you have some voice messages on Anchor.
I do?
Yeah, that we haven't listened to.
Oh, snap.
I apologize for Lauren.
My bad.
YOLO.
That's great. We'll see you guys, and we'll talk to you guys in the next one. Thanks for listening to Love This For Us. We love you guys.
Stay safe. Stay well. Wash your hands.
Bye.
Bye.
I'll let you do that. Well, friends, thanks for hanging out. It's like when I rewatch this, I get to relive the story. It's very weird. It's very surreal.
Yeah, we'll see how I feel.
We'll see you guys tomorrow.
No, I don't mean that in a bad way.
No, it's just different, you know? Yeah. Like talking about it, so.
Yeah.
See you guys tomorrow. Bye.